Going on, guys? Alex here, sitting in one of my favorite spots by the river here in Poland, just enjoying the rays of early September, making the most of it before we plunge into colder climes. And I wanted to use this serene moment to talk about falling in love with life and waxing lyrical on the idea and whether it's even possible, and what is required, shall we say, in us in order to fall in love with life, or at least enjoy life more often, more of the time. And I wanted to kind of hone in on a specific part of this conversation. It's a very sort of stoic, something that you'd see in stoic philosophy a lot, and it's looking at the thing that will most certainly guarantee you do not fall in love with life, and that is when we have expectations in terms of how we want life to be, and we have an image in our minds that reflects an idealized version of our experience. And the reason I bring attention to this is that it's extremely important if you let this idea kind of fade away from significance, because we as humans are fallible creatures, and we are very prone to want things to be a certain way in our experiences, and we have a kind of plan and an idea and a preference for how we want things to go. We want things to go well. We want things to be successful in our lives. We want things to go smoothly. And those of us who tend to struggle the most, that I've seen in the people that I know, and I of course see it in myself, every day in small measures, smaller than they were before, because I'm thinking of these things a lot, and it's in the mentality. Those who struggle, those who do not have a hope in heck chance of falling in love with life, whatever that might mean to you, are those who expect things or want things to go well, and when they don't go well, resist the reality of things not going well. They want things to go smoothly, and when things don't go smoothly, when there is a drop, when there is a lull in mood, when there is a disappointment or a setback, we can either resist it and say, oh man, it's just so annoying, it's so disappointing, it's just such a shame that this happened the way that it did. Because if you're viewing things in that light, if you are open to rejecting and resisting what goes on in your life, no matter what it is, if you are tolerating your own resistance to things, you are welcoming in struggle. You are welcoming in suffering. You are acknowledging, in that sense, that suffering is a part of your existence. How can we enjoy life? How can we fall in love with life if we welcome in suffering? Now, as I've shared a few times, whether it be through a tweet or an article or a video, I've talked a lot about this idea that all human suffering, all suffering full stop, it's a human fabrication. It's a human concept. All suffering originates in our minds. All suffering starts at the level of thought. If us humans weren't human and we didn't have this faculty to think and to judge and to have awareness, we wouldn't have suffering, because suffering is predicated on our ability as humans to judge something, to judge, namely something being not good, when we judge something, when we criticize something, when we resist through judgment what's going on in our world, when we say, for example, I failed the test, life isn't good anymore, or there's something wrong with me because I flunked, or I was rejected by that girl, so there's something wrong in my life, there's something wrong with me. There's a judgment at play in that experience, and we create suffering because we have judged. If we never judge and we never have a perception on anything, or I mean, perceptions are, I guess, allowed, right? But to put a critical negative layer of thought onto something, you're essentially projecting your opinion, your belief onto something else, and making it seem in your own mind that that thing is causing you pain, then we're going to suffer, because suffering is rooted to the idea that we are kind of at the mercy of our surroundings. When we're fully in control, and when we take full responsibility for our experience, and we can therefore choose how to experience life, and that's why people say that happiness is a choice, we will find that life becomes much more enjoyable, much more continually blissful. Now, that's not to say that when we get cut, when we get punched in the face, we don't feel pain. Pain is one thing, but it isn't suffering until we judge it as something worthy of suffering from. Some people might get a punch in the face and find that they judge it positively. You know, it's good, I got a knock, life is giving me something back, I'm in the ring, I'm playing the game, you know, I'm on the front line, and that can be invigorating for many, you know. A lot of people, I can see the life switch on in their eyes when they're, you know, I remember thinking back to my days in the OTC with the army at university, and kind of getting stuck into very seemingly, you know, uncomfortable and occasionally painful situations, out in the cold and the rain, getting shot at, playing army. A lot of that was painful and cold and difficult, but it was fun, it was invigorating, because we felt alive, and many people shared that same sense of positive aliveness with that. So there are experiences and there are things that can happen to us that don't feel comfortable, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it means that it's suffering. Suffering comes from your rumination on something. Suffering comes from an initial judgment that where I am is not good, that life isn't working right now for me, I don't like this, I want to get out of here. So this is why people have very, very varied experiences of the same things. You can have someone who goes on a hike and complains the whole way and struggles with the cold and complains about the cold and has painful feet that they go on about, and they will experience that same walk that you might have done in a very different way. So going back to the initial question, is it possible to truly fall in love with life? Well, yes, it is. As long as you are willing to take the ups and downs, and again, the downs will be part of your own judgment. So you in theory, don't even need to judge anything as negative. You can see everything as a lesson, as data, as value that is making you grow, that is either a comfort to you that you're enjoying, that is pleasure, or it's something that is testing you, that is prompting your own growth and your own development, and that's also an equally positive thing. So it's all about perception. So those of us who choose the path of enjoying life and everything about life can see that it is possible when we expect life to not always be smooth. And that's really the leverage point in all of this. You know, if there's one thing to look at as, you know, really closely and to just bring our awareness and our attention to it that makes all the difference, it's the difference between resisting life's irregularities and accepting life's irregularities. As soon as we can accept that life isn't always going to be smooth, as soon as we can accept that we will suffer setbacks and we will suffer disappointments, and we will, again, take this with a grain of salt, because I am describing these in labels that look negative, but of course if you change your perception, you don't need to see it as suffering, you don't need to see it as struggle, you can just see it as a thing that happens to you. But to a third party, perhaps they might see, you know, you getting dumped by a girl as a deeply negative experience. But you, in your falling in love with life, don't need to have your experience of life get any lower, get any worse, just because that event happened. You can cultivate a love for life's ups and downs. You can learn to love pain. You can learn to indulge in the sensation that life gives you, the aliveness that comes from being stuck into life. And it's for those people who are okay with butting up against those harder moments and feeling the cold and the rain when you're on a field day weekend in the army, seeing that as enlivening rather than a chore or a nightmare. These are the people that do well. These are the people who are given the ultimate advantage in life. The ultimate advantage is the perception that life is fall in love withable, that you can enjoy all aspects of life, no matter how difficult, no matter how fun. All of it is something that you can enjoy being a part of. Anyway, that's it from me today, guys. Surrounded by dog walkers. And something to contemplate. I know it's an oft-repeated kind of discussion point. It's not anything necessarily new that I've brought to the table. It's a very stoic, very ancient philosophical idea. But I think it's always good to bring these ideas up and remind ourselves of the power of perception, the power of us simply having a choice. We have a choice at every second that we go through the day, whether we want to enjoy life, whether we want to be happy from this moment, from within us, or whether we want to struggle. You can choose. It doesn't depend on circumstance. It depends on your outlook. Okay guys, that's it from me. If you enjoyed this, do subscribe. If you like the video, do like it. And share this with people that you know who might benefit from this. Take care, guys.